We talked about the 2025 Bears offense. We've talked about special teams. Now it's time to talk about the defense on this episode of the Hallis Huddle.
Huddle up!
That's right. It's time to huddle up, Hallis Huddlers. We are back with the defensive episode of our three-part series. And just a reminder, hit the subscribe button right now, because if you do, and you go to the comment section and type in Huddle Up, you'll be entered into a giveaway. Okay, this giveaway this is the last of the three episodes. This giveaway, the drawing is going to be done on June 1st. So you need to get into the comment section, type in Huddle Up. Make sure you go back to the other two episodes. You can do Huddle Up again for a total of 3 entries into this drawing. That's all it is. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Tonight with me, Bob and Justin, we got the whole crew. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Nice holiday weekend. Just kind of been relaxing all day. It's been nice.
Love it. I'm going to give a quick shout out. This will be coming out on Memorial Day. So 2 quick shout outs. One, I have to say happy birthday to my wife. If I don't say that I will be in big trouble. So happy birthday to my wife. And also a thank you. This is Memorial Day. It was when this will be released. So a thank you to all the troops who have, served, put their lives on the line, who have lost their lives throughout that time, throughout history. So again, thank you for that. But we are here to talk about Chicago Bears defense. So let's get into it. Right away, you can see at the bottom here, you're going to see some scrolling with some key subtractions and key additions. We'll talk about those as we go through each position. If you guys want to bring them up at any point, just let me know.
Ruben Hippolyte. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to bring him up right away, Rob.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate that. Defensive ends. All right. 2025 versus 2024. Not a big difference, to be honest. As we had there at the bottom, DeMarcus Walker, probably the biggest name to change in that position, but Montez Sweat is still here, right? And then the addition would be bringing in Dio. So you're kind of replacing DeMarcus Walker with Dio. I don't know. Do you guys think? I'll throw it to Justin first. Do you think this is an even situation, a bit of an upgrade, a bit of a downgrade? What do you think here when we look at this roster spot?
What's crazy to me is you go all the way back, early in the offseason. We did a mock offseason episode, and we talked about who do we need to cut to make some room this offseason. And we said, Ryan Bates, just get rid of him. He's still on the roster, and yet the first major cut, I feel, was DeMarcus Walker. And DeMarcus Walker, I mean, he's not a star. He didn't play like a star, but he was somewhat of a leader on the team, and he produced. And so to see him cut, and yes, they did replace him, but I still feel they need another edge. And I have a name that I'd like to throw out there, and maybe I'll save that for a little later, but it could end up being DeMarcus Walker. Now, I don't know if he just doesn't fit in a Dennis Allen system. That could be, but it's kind of strange that he was like the number one guy they cut. And then here we are a couple months later, still kind of feeling like this position needs to be addressed in some way. I don't know if I'm the only one on this panel that feels that way. I'm going to toss it over to Bob. And then maybe on the loop around, I'll tell you the name I'm thinking that would be a nice addition.
Yeah, I'm very curious to know what name you're thinking of. I know there's a couple interesting ones out there. But as far as, comparing what's on the roster right now to last year, I do think it's a slight upgrade on paper. Dio Odeyenbo is just, I think, a bigger, faster, stronger, younger DeMarcus Walker. Now, we hope he's as productive. But I think on paper it's an upgrade, a more expensive upgrade, but it makes sense to me. And then what you really are hoping is that another year of growth from Austin Booker, if he can come in and be a producer, get 6, 7, 8 sacks this year, that would be huge. And then still, Demarcus Robinson is not Demarcus Robinson. I always mess up his name. Dominique Robinson is still the same athlete he's always been. So maybe in a different type of system where he just kind of is just attacking the man in front of him, instead of a more technical approach with Eberflus, maybe there's more to get out of Dominique as well. But I also could absolutely see the need for another veteran edge. Now, there are 2 interesting UDFAs. It's hard to project UDFAs to ever actually make the roster. But there is Xavier Carlton out of Cal, 6'5", 273 with those 34-inch arms, kind of the prototype. He's a little slower with a 5.08 40, so not super explosive, but he fits the prototype. He had some productivity in college. And then there's also Jeremy Robinson, an edge out of Kansas, a little bit smaller, 6'2", 264 with a 4.8 40, and again, just kind of some production in a Big 12 school. So we'll see if those guys do anything. But yeah, or Rob, I guess, what are you thinking about maybe some veteran additions?
Yeah, so I'm just going to give Gary Ross some props here for this one, but he was telling me that, so one of the cut candidates for the Carolina Panthers could be DJ Wanham. And, he's played both end, he's played both outside linebacker, but he kind of fits that Dennis Allen, bigger, longer mold. If he does get cut by Carolina, that could be an option. He was with the Vikings out of South Carolina, out of college, and he's been, somewhat productive. He's got a couple 8-sack seasons. So if he becomes available, that could be a guy. I will say, look, for those of you out there who think that, Trey Hendrickson is still an option, I personally, don't think that to be the case. Once they sign Joe Thuney, like the amount of money that they have is just kind of really not there. And I know the salary cap can be finagled, but it just doesn't seem like it makes sense now. I think it made more sense going into the draft with some of the ideas of just moving back from 10 to 17, that type of, trade situation. But as far as for me, I think it's kind of even, to be honest. I think Dio's pretty much, I agree with you, Bob, that, he's a little bit faster. He's younger, obviously, but I just kind of feel like the one thing I did like about DeMarcus Walker was like his vocal leadership on the line. So I don't think you're going to get that as much with Dio. Yeah, I just think it's kind of like a wash, and I'm a little bit concerned. It's probably one of the positions I'm most concerned about, honestly, going into 2025.
So you didn't say the guy I was thinking, and I just quickly looked it up, and apparently rumors are out there that he's close to signing with a few teams, but I really think Jadeveon Clowney, if you could get him at close to a vet minimum, fits the Dennis Allen prototype. I think with Clowney, it's like you remember him in college, and he came in as a number 1 pick, and I don't think he ever reached that, but he's a solid end. He can play against the run. I think seeing that there's still some need for something, I would be very happy if they would get Clowney at a reasonable cost. But if there's other teams sniffing around and the dollar goes a little too high, you're not getting him at his absolute prime or anything like that. So I wouldn't want to overpay for him. But if he's there, I could see that being a pretty good signing that would hopefully solidify it. And then, like you said, Bob, then you can hope for whatever you need out of Booker and Robinson and these other guys. But without getting that more solid piece, now you're hoping, but you also need it.
Yeah, Clowney would be interesting. I don't think you're going to get him at close to veteran minimum. I think you could still get him at a price the Bears could still handle at this point, maybe $6, $7, $8 million a year, but I don't really know if that's reasonable. I know another name thrown out there is Darius Smith. He's kind of moved around some teams the last 2 or 3 seasons, but he did end up in Detroit towards the end of last season. So maybe I don't know if Ben liked what he saw or not, but there's kind of another option if you just get into camp. You didn't see what you liked during mini camp out of these guys. You need a veteran. That could be a guy that you look at towards August.
The cool thing about Zadarius Smith is if he signs with the Bears, he fills out his entire NFC North bingo card.
That's right. That's right.
All right, well, let's move to the inside of the defensive line and talk about the interior. This is obviously, I think, where you did see a big upgrade, and I'll throw my voice out there right away. But bringing in Grady Jarrett is to me speaks volumes. But I am huge on Gervon Dexter. I will speak to him once you guys talk about the line. I have one thing to throw out there about him, but then you also drafted Shamar Turner. He's been rumored to be being able to play both the end and on the inside. But yeah, so we'll go with you first, Bob. But looking at this roster, I personally think it's an upgrade. Andrew Billings should be coming back. Hopefully that injury isn't something that's going to, cause a problem going into the 2025 season. But what do you think? Do you think it's a wash, upgrade, downgrade? What do you got?
This is a massive upgrade. You got Grady Jarrett coming in, then you got Shamar Turner coming in, both defensive tackles. And there was injuries last year, I know, with Andrew Billings, but do you guys have any idea who the second and third most snaps played by defensive tackles were last year?
I'm sorry, second what?
Second and third most snaps played by defensive tackles last year.
Well, it's got to be Gervon Dexter.
Gervon Dexter was number
He's
one.
on.
So second and third.
Second and third.
It's the guys they
Chris
signed off the
Williams
street.
and Byron
Chris Harris.
I was
Chris
hoping this wasn't going to be our shorts category.
Yeah. And Byron
Zach
Howard.
Pickens.
Zach Pickens was fourth or fifth. That's another thing about Zach
Yeah.
Pickens. What's he doing on this roster? He couldn't even get the snaps.
He was a
last year.
healthy scratch late
Right.
in the season on a team going nowhere.
Right. So you got Chris Williams and Byron Howard out, and you got Grady Jarrett and Shamar Turner coming in. Massive, massive, massive upgrade. And again, Zach Pickens is your fifth defensive tackle. Now you're talking about a former third-round pick who's still an athlete. That's a deep position group. So I love the depth that they've got on the interior. Hopefully, Grady Jarrett's a little older. Maybe Andrew Billings is injury prone. I don't know what it is, but there's depth and some reinforcements should something happen this year.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm very excited about the depth of the interior defensive line group. And obviously that has to be a rotation. And you got the leadership that we talked about, maybe that left with Walker. You get some of that with Jarrett. It's funny with Shamar Turner and Jarrett, it's almost like, at least I feel like maybe you're getting kind of the same player, but you're getting him in the past and in the present, kind of like the veteran and the younger guy who can learn and model his game after him. Now, as exciting as that all is, Rob, I'm going to plug you here. I don't remember what episode it was. True Hallis Huddlers know and go back. But you did a whole feature on the fact that in Dennis Allen's systems, the interior is not really the emphasis point on the defensive line. Now, that being said, I hope and I believe that good coaches see what they have and utilize it to its fullest. And so since we just talked about the edge not being necessarily an area of strength, at least unless some of the potential we're talking about doesn't click in right away, I hope that this rotation on the interior can be a force to make that whole line play well as a unit.
And there's some flexibility with these interior guys too. I think we'd be remiss not to mention that Shamar Turner could play outside if needed. Gervon Dexter has kind of shown some flexibility to go outside as well. So kind of the lack of depth we talked about in the previous position group, the defensive ends, these flexibility on the interior guys can help with that. Yeah,
and speaking of Gervon Dexter, I just got to throw this out there. He actually put this on his Instagram account couple days ago, but it's Pro Football Impact's defensive tackle impact ratings, and he was ranked number 20th, which doesn't sound that great, but I'm going to put this out there. Jalen Carter was 16th. So, and they weren't that far off in their grade. I'm not big on grades, except for when they're my own, but look.
Or they make your point.
Hey, I just wanted to shout that out. Like, I've been pushing the fact that, like, if you look at the overall stats, look, he was right there. He had a fantastic year last year. He's not getting enough credit. People are saying he's not making an impact. Bullshit. Clearly he's making an impact. So
I mean, I'm not going to necessarily fight you too hard on this one, Rob, but I just one time, name me the game that Gervon Dexter took over.
I can't, but to be honest, I couldn't tell you that.
3 examples of a guy like Jalen Carter taking over a game, right? So if you want to be elite, you got to step up. I'm not saying he can't step up. I'm not saying he won't step up. I'm just saying there's levels to this, and he's
I didn't watch enough Eagles football games to compare the two from what they did off the stat sheet versus on the stat sheet, but maybe that's something I'll have to put on my checklist for homework before the season starts.
There you go.
All right, let's move on to linebackers. This is probably the bread and butter of what Chicago Bears football, you think of when you think of the Chicago Bears. Just a great line of linebackers. Probably not so strong suit for this team. I'd say they're about meh. The two top guys are exactly the same in TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. So therefore, that's exactly the same. Now you lose Jack Sanborn, right? I know he's a fan favorite, and you're bringing in Ruben Hippolyte. That is true. But look, there's also rumors that there's a possibility that Daniel Hardy has been working at the linebacker position as well. So maybe that could be your new Jack Sanborn. We'll have to find out how that plays out during training camp. But we'll throw it to you, Justin, since I went to Bob last time. Upgrade, downgrade, nothing changed.
Well, I'm tempted to say nothing changed. However, I keep going back to Dennis Allen. I do want to see what Tremaine Edmonds can do in this system. He has like so much potential, and now he's basically in a make it or break it type of year. Because I believe he is signed through next year, but they could easily get out of his contract next year if he doesn't meet the level that they're expecting. And so I could see him taking a step. And if that's the case, TJ Edwards has been fairly consistent, fairly solid. You want to see depth at all your positions, but let's be honest, teams are playing nickel all the time. You just paid Kyler Gordon to be that guy. You want him out on the field. So really, you are looking at these two, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards. It's about how they perform. And if Edmonds can just kind of raise his game a slight bit, I'm excited to see what they can do to kind of help the entire defensive unit.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a little hard on Tremaine Edmonds right now. I mean, he's obviously a supreme athlete, but as we went through the draft process, we kept talking about we want to get football players, we want to get football players, we want to get football players. I think Tremaine Edmonds is one of these guys who's more athlete, who's just trying to use his athleticism on a football field, as opposed to a guy like TJ Edwards, who's clearly just a football player, who's like limited athletically compared to a guy like Edmonds, but clearly way more productive because he's just a better football player. Now, Tremaine Edmonds is still like productive. He's not a zero. He's not, but he's also not earning his contract, and he's fine. So you still have an average, above average starting linebacker in Tremaine Edmonds, and that's terrific. But it's just you just want a guy that size who can move like that. You just want more out of it. And as far as replacing Sanborn, obviously Hippolyte is just kind of a lightning rod topic on this show, so that's kind of funny. But Noah Sewell is another guy that I'm curious to see some more reps, see what he can do with an opportunity. I think he's got some traits and attributes that Dennis Allen likes, speed in particular. And special teams, kind of a vicious guy. So we'll kind of see how that goes, how this plays out during training camp.
What's interesting is that Tremaine Edmonds and Roquan Smith were like the two linebackers that everyone was kind of like interchanging in that draft. And it's crazy to see how one's career has gone versus the other.
Yeah.
Not that either has won a Super Bowl. For those of you who are, we shouldn't have traded Roquan Smith. Get out of here.
Well, I think Roquan Smith at least is a good example of what it's like when a really good football player is also a really good athlete. Right.
100%.
That's what we get.
He's also an off-the-ball linebacker, and it doesn't change your football team that much for the better. So
hold on. Before we go further, you kind of got me thinking. Tremaine Edmonds, I believe one of the other little like nuggets about him in his career, he came in the league at 20, I believe.
I think it was 19.
Right. Or 19 or something crazy like that. So Bob, Madden, 6'5", 250,
87 speed, whatever he was.
87 speed, 19 or 20 years old. He'd be a top guy you build a franchise around.
That awareness is still sitting at 65, though. So
maybe that's it. So.
All right. Let's move on to probably the strongest position on this team. Jalen Johnson, in my opinion, is considered a top 3 corner in this league, all pro player. Pro Bowl should be on his accolades every single year, in my opinion. I think he gets snubbed. But then you got who's going to be opposite of him, right? Is it going to be Tyreek Stevenson in this, now man coverage offense versus zone coverage offense or defense? Sorry. Or is it going to be Terrell Smith, right? Like maybe someone else pushes into the conversation. Bob, corners, I didn't even bring up the fact that they re-signed one of the best nickel corners in the league in Kyler Gordon, right? So, Bob, what do you think? Are we looking at the same thing here, or because of the system, because of Dennis Allen, it's going to be a slight upgrade?
So I wish I could speak more to what I expect out of the secondary from Dennis Allen. I know I kind of focus more on what he wants in the trenches, more attacking the man in front of you. And all I've really heard him talk about in the secondary is about speed. I really don't know too much about man versus zone, all that kind of stuff. So Jalen Johnson is a very, very good player, excellent player, top 3 corner for sure. But he's really good at what he's really good at, right? So I hope that Dennis Allen is able to just kind of let him lock down the number 1 and whatever the rest of his system he wants to do. Like, Jalen Johnson is still allowed to do what he wants to do. As far as Tyreek Stevenson versus Terrell Smith, let that be an open battle. I still think Tyreek Stevenson is just a better I think he's a better athlete and a better football player. He's still got some maturing to do, but I hope it's just maturing and he's not like a bad guy. He's just like, all right, like when you're 23 years old, you learn life lessons. That's what's supposed to happen. So hopefully he comes out last season better for it. But yeah, this is super deep position group. You got a top 3 outside corner. You got a top let's just say top 3, maybe top 5. I'm not really that versed on the nickels across the league, but in Kyler Gordon, and you got some really, really solid options to play opposite Jalen Johnson in Terrell Smith and Tyreek Stevenson. And then you also got Zay Frazier, who, coaches really, really like. And I heard he played pretty well during rookie minicamp. I didn't hear much about him during the full team mini camp that they just had, but it's another exciting option. So we'll see what happens with this group.
So Bob, to your point about how will these guys fit in the system, I think it's very telling that in Dennis Allen's introductory press conference, he mentions Kyler Gordon, who at the time hadn't even gotten his new contract extension. So I do think he's going to enjoy using him in a lot of different ways in kind of that gadget role. Now, I know Kyler has had a few injuries here and there, so I do kind of worry about that if you're depending on him for that. But last season, I thought he put it all together pretty well, which is probably why the Bears were comfortable extending him. Something I've consistently been saying all offseason, and if I'm wrong, you guys are going to have so much tape to go back and just call me out on, but the additions on the coaching staff, I think Al Harris is a very good coach, especially for a guy like Tyreek. I think players respect guys who've been there and done that. And like you said, Bob, he couldn't have had a more embarrassing way to be called out for being immature. It's out there. I mean, we already talked about it. It made its way into multiple teams' schedule announcements, including teams not even playing the Bears. So it's out there, and it's going to be a blemish until he overcomes it. And so hopefully it's motivation for him. And we'll see. But on paper, this group is strong, and I'm excited to see what they produce. I know hearing from some of them, hearing Jalen Johnson saying, I'm guarding the number 1, I'm following him all over the field. You can tell he's excited about the coaching change. Now let's just hope the production follows.
Yeah, so just to speak to Dennis Allen's system, runs a lot of quarters. So you're going to have to be able to play both sides, and we'll get to the safeties here in just a second. But yeah, he does do a lot more man coverage. Obviously, every defense is going to run both man and zone, depending on what, the offense is doing. So I do think Tyreek Stevenson has a leg up here, just being able to play the position that he wants. And you mentioned it, Bob. So the one difference here with Dennis Allen's system is Jalen Johnson will probably be the guy shadowing that wide receiver 1, something that he did not do in Matt Eberflus's system. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes on that role. Like, will that impact him in a positive or maybe a negative standpoint? Maybe he's viewed more nationally and gets that recognition that he hasn't been getting when he's taking on the wide receiver 1s consistently, or maybe he's exposed. I'm thinking it's going to be the former and not the latter, but
I think he'll be able to hang. I really believe that. I'm excited to see it, but yeah, I think he'll be able to.
Yeah. All right. Well, we hinted at the safeties. Like I said, they do play a lot of quarters, which means the safeties can kind of have to be a little bit interchangeable. You're not just going to be just a free safety or just a strong safety. I don't know. Here we go. Jaquan Brisker didn't even play for half the year last year. So with him coming back, if he's truly healthy, is that in itself an upgrade? They didn't really add anything to this thing. I had this as a top 5 need going into the draft. They didn't really address it at all. So clearly they disagree with me. Kevin Byard, I think, is going to be 32 this year if he hasn't already turned 32. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember who I went with last, so I'm just going to throw it to you, Justin. Upgrade, downgrade, even, where you got this.
So normally Bob's the one that kind of brings us back to reality and says, hey, tap the brakes here, but I can do that on this position. Even though I didn't put it as a top 5 need, once you said it was, Rob, I got on board with that pretty quickly. I like Brisker when he's at his best. And when you say like a guy has a history of injuries, to me, when it's concussions, that's a whole different thing. Like his next one could be his last one. And I'm very concerned about that. Now, him as a player, I like what we've seen in the past, but there's a major question mark. Byard, it's his age. The backups, they're fine, but if they have to play an extensive amount, that's not good. And even when you look at that, when you project who's going to make this 53-man roster at that position, not a single one of them is signed for 2026. So some change has to be coming, but you would have hoped that you were already bringing people into the pipeline, as opposed to there's a potential that by 2026, you have 2 new starters and 2 backups, new backups. That to me is a sign that you don't have your roster where you want it to be. So I'll just say that. Now, if Brisker surprises us, gets back to his old form, Byard, I don't think has started to regress too much. You could get away with it, but it seems like awful lot of risk to me.
Yeah, I mean, I expected him to do something at safety. I really did. I didn't know what, but I expected him to do something. And I think, we talked about that we believe they fumbled the middle of the draft a little bit. And maybe this is a spot where you'd love to get yourself a 4th or 5th round safety to come in here and just be on the roster. So you just know you had a guy going into next year who you liked. And at the same time, when you're drafting best player available, things fall through the cracks. Like, what if they would have drafted a safety instead of Shamar Turner? Well, no, I'd rather have Shamar Turner than a safety, right? So I get it. I understand it. You can't address all the needs all the time, but it's a worrisome position. One of these guys goes down, Jonathan Owens is the next man up, right? So we'll just kind of see if he's going to be able to step in and play the way Dennis Allen wants him to play or not. Was Brisker a full participant in this minicamp? Does anybody know if anybody made a note of that? I know there were like 12 people that didn't show, but whatever. We don't
I saw some clips of him, but he was wearing the padded helmet.
So he probably wants to be out there and doing what he can. So I mean, that's a good sign. I mean, he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player, but he's a good player when he's out there. It's just, can you depend on him to be out there? And Byard is, age catches up to everybody, right? So you hope he has another great year. But we'll just kind of see. And this is another spot where there are 2 interesting UDFAs that the Bears did sign. According to Kevin Fishbane, The Athletic, his 2 favorite UDFAs were the 2 safeties they signed. One was Major Burns, safety out of LSU. So obviously out of LSU, that kind of catches some eyebrows already. You got a guy like that coming out who's, I think he's like a 3 or 4 year starter for LSU. So he's got a lot of production, kind of limited athletically in terms of top end speed, but kind of an interesting, more in the box type safety. And then the other guy who, when Ryan Poles was on, I believe with on ESPN 1000 with Hood and Cap, they asked him specifically about Major Burns, and unprompted, he's like, don't forget about Tysheem Johnson out of Oregon. And so he's more of a kind of a speed type player. He's the one I've really got my eye on here throughout the offseason and training camp to see if Tysheem Johnson's a guy that might be battling for a roster spot.
I just confirmed. Yeah, Brisker was not on the list of guys who did not participate at the OTAs. So he must have been a full participant. I will say, though, Major Burns has the worst name for a defensive back in all of the NFL.
To your last point, I mean, you basically have to put one of those guys on your practice squad. I mean,
100%. Yeah. I mean, if not both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, defense, up, down, same. Let us know in the comments. What do you guys think? Where do they have weaknesses? Where do they not? Where is the strengths? We want to hear from you. So go to the comment section. Don't forget to put Huddle Up in there so you get entered into the drawing. But also, let us know. Let us know what you guys think of this defense. We mentioned Dennis Allen's name. Is he the biggest upgrade in this situation, or is that even keel? Because look, Matt Eberflus was always considered one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. Prior to becoming the head coach of the Bears. So where do you have that ranked? Let us know in the comments section. Final thoughts. Bob, you got any final thoughts? Oh, DA is the right man for the job. I should have looked at that slide before I spoke.
You just hope he is, right? I mean, there's a lot, maintain, like, I don't want to proclaim anything until you see it, but I mean, DA is a pretty proven guy, right? And he's not being tasked with anything other than being the defensive coordinator. So you really hope that he's able to put all these guys. There's a lot of good athletes on this defense, and you hope that he's just putting them all in the right position to be successful as a unit and really hold down the other team. So hopefully this improved offense can go out and win some games.
My final thought, for the most part, they're running it back with who they had. And you're right, Rob. Eberflus is a great defensive coordinator, but when he started to be exposed as a head coach, guys were losing faith in him. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and it starts all the way at the top, I think, with Jalen Johnson. But so they were kind of like top half of the league defense. Billings goes out, Brisker goes out, no faith in Eberflus, everything falls apart. But those two guys come back. You get rejuvenated by a coaching regime change. Maybe this can be a top half defense again. And hopefully the offense, like Bob said, is much improved, and winning will make everyone play a lot better.
My final thoughts are, if you go to Costco and you buy a gazebo, you better hire a contractor to assemble it, because it is absolutely awful.
It looks great, Rob. It looks great.
It looks good.
Present for the wife. It's perfect.
Is Costco one of our sponsors? Oh.
No, but we'll see. We'll see if it holds up in 60 to 80 mile an hour winds at any point this summer.
Yikes.
Well, next thing up is a Huddle barbecue. So let us know when.
There we go.
Huddle up.
All right. That's it for us, though, on this episode. Please, again, comment, huddle up. Please subscribe. Hit the like button. Until next time, bear down, claws up.
Ready, break.